Hi, and welcome to the State of Leadership, Simple and Beyond. That is Robert Hilliard. I am Whitney Wiley, and we are here talking all things leadership. And if we're here, it must be Thursday, 12 noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. And we are happy that you are here. Today, we are going to be following up on a topic that we introduced inside of another discussion that we were having. We were talking about taking action as part of your decision making and how you haven't finished your decision making process until you've actually taken action. And somehow, I don't remember why, Elon Musk came up. And we're talking about succeeding, right? You can be a success in what you're doing. And the question is, does that mean you're leading well? Does success automatically mean you must be leading well? If you're succeeding, right? If the work is getting done, if the business is still growing, if the business is thriving even, does that mean you're a success? And I guess maybe the corollary question needs to be asked as well. I don't know. If you are successfully leading, does that necessarily mean that your business has to be a success? I don't know. Might be a question that comes up in our conversation and that we will answer. But certainly, in all that's going on over the course of the last month or so, once Elon Musk took over Twitter, there has been some, I would say, upheaval, right? There have been mass firings. There have been less than mass firing layoffs, I think. There have been rescinding the firings, and then people voluntarily leaving, right? So there's all kinds of stuff going on. If you go on Twitter, which I don't do a lot, it appears to continuing
it's functioning
usual. But if you read comments here or there, I will say this: the nature of the comments that are there, I would say, have gotten worse. Part of the reason I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter is I don't like the environment. I would say that the environment has gotten worse. If that's necessarily a function of the changes, that I don't know. But I have read some comments in various tweets that suggest that maybe it's a matter of time between, you just said it's still functioning, on whether or not it will continue to function. And I think that was sort of the essence of where this comment came from about, he's been successful in other things, in running Tesla and running SpaceX. Does that acumen necessarily move with him to Twitter? Different kind of business, right? It's a different business model, different kind of business. What he did well somewhere else, does that necessarily translate? And even if he does it well, does that mean that he's leading well? So, opening thoughts, Robert Hilliard.
Okay. There's a couple of things. We got our B movie title running at the bottom, The Terror of Elon Musk in 3D. A couple of things. And you mentioned a lot in the very beginning. So success, I'll just put the spoiler out there. Success does not necessarily mean you're a good leader.
Oh, you answered the question already?
Yeah. Why not? Get it out of the way. Because right. we have plenty of examples of successful people. And I don't like to name names, because a lot of the times those names are controversial, and some people like those people for numerous reasons.
Okay.
But success does not mean that you're a good leader. I mean, you could have inherited something from your predecessors, your relatives, and you're just sitting there inhabiting a seat, and the business is going. It's business as usual, for lack of a better phrase. it probably would take a lot. If that business is successful, it probably would take a lot for you to run that business into the ground, right? Especially if it's been going around or running for many years, and people that work there know what's going on. And I've been involved in organizations, and I'm sure you have too, where the leader is basically a figurehead. Everyone else is doing the work.
True.
So that's one thing. So the other thing that you mentioned was, Elon Musk. Let's focus on him now. He's successful in SpaceX. He's successful in Tesla, although Tesla had some issues, or still does. There are many people who are successful in one area of business, or quite maybe even two areas of business, that aren't successful in other areas.
Right.
So I was going to say, what does the insulin pump and Segway have to do with one another? They're created by the same person, right? Insulin pump is extremely successful. When was the last time you saw a Segway? Yeah. and some people watching the show probably don't even know what a Segway is, because it just did not, incredibly well designed product that didn't do well. The person overestimated the value of this well-designed product that people did not want. So that's the answer to the second part of that question. Now, the thing that's really interesting about the whole Elon Musk, I was going to say debacle, but I don't want to say that, because we don't know if it looks like a debacle. It may not be. In the end analysis, he may figure it out. I don't know that. But what we see is a lot of bad leadership decisions. So this is a really good segue from our last 4 episodes. This was really a lot of really bad decisions.
And this is a different segue than the one you just talked about.
Yeah. You slapped my knee. But yeah, that was really good. I didn't even catch that. But it's really interesting, because one of the first things that he did, well, let's just move. We won't talk about everything, but how about the fact that he basically threatened employees and said, okay, you better be ready to work basically 80 hours a week, or you're not going to be employed here. You need to be really hardcore, need to do all of this. And, I'm sending this thing out and you need to click on it. If you don't click on it, that's going to be seen as your resignation. About 2,000 people resigned. Then he had to ask people to come back. It created so much chaos that the people that are left there don't really know who they're reporting to, because there've been so many people in key positions that have left. So it's just created chaos. So it's just really interesting. And we're going to just focus on that for right now. What are your thoughts about that, Whitney?
So it reminded me, as you were talking, it reminded me of a time when I worked for someone, in this whole concept of a business sort of just humming along, regardless of who is in charge, right? So I want to start there and then get to your question about that particular chaos. And most people who have jobs, I'm convinced of this. Most people who have jobs, I haven't done the studies, notwithstanding the lack of engagement that studies show, most people want to do a good job, right? They want to work, they want to go to work, they want to do a good job and do the job that they are paid to do and get paid for it. Yes, there are some, we can call them slackers, we can call them any other kind of name. But for the most part, I truly believe most people want to go to work, do a good job, and they in fact do a good job, regardless of who is their boss, right? And at some point, the person that is their boss, if they are not a good leader, they are a poor boss or the bad boss that people ultimately leave for, they stay around much longer than I think they would probably ordinarily think they would stay to work under toxic conditions. I'll just call it that. And so it's interesting that this guy, Elon Musk, would come in and create, like it seems to me, intentionally create an environment, like basically from day one, create an environment that doesn't sort of bode well, an outcome that bodes well ultimately for institutional knowledge. Maybe he doesn't want that, right? And so what I keep thinking is he's getting exactly what he wants rather than he is doing a poor job leading. I'm thinking he's doing what he's doing intentionally. For what purpose, I haven't quite wrapped my head around. But it has definitely created problems, right? And the problems that I see that he's creating is alienating people who probably could do a good job of making sure that this business continues. And he could have gotten to the same outcome in a much, let's say, in a way that would be an effective leader and still sort of get to the outcome of, if it's about reducing the workforce because we need to save money, I've overpaid for this thing, or it's falling apart, it's never made money and it needs to make money. There was just a different way to go about it. And it's the particular way that he's gone about it that is, I don't know, in my mind, so egregious that I'm thinking there's a method to his there's a method to his madness that because we're not mad, we haven't figured out.
Well, I think the method to his madness is he's just going to do things his way. So whatever he saw going on at Twitter that he didn't like, he's like, well, that's not how I would do it. We're going to go in and do it my way.
Yeah, but there are repercussions that are beyond just people on LinkedIn or Twitter or anywhere else saying that he's crazy or he's not a good leader or any of that, right? There are legal consequences to some of the actions that he's taken already that I don't think that he has stopped to think about. So for instance, in California, I don't know about, because everyone is not working in California anymore, right? They were given freedom to work from wherever before he came in and rescinded the work from wherever order. So there are people all over the place. What are the laws that govern those people working where they are? Did he stop to take into account, you can't just go and fire 3,500 people, right? When you have a mass firing or layoff, there are processes in place that you have to undertake. And it's not just America. What they've done has impacted Twitter employees around the globe. And I've been reading stuff about him, just doing things the way he wants to do it, the repercussions that it will have financially. So you've already got a company that's financially in distress. Now you're compounding that. And going back to our conversation about decision making, right? As an effective leader, taking the time to understand what's on the table, what the repercussions are, right? It doesn't seem to me he's taken any time to gather data, any information about, if I do this, what it's going to mean. And, so in Europe, they have a whole different take on the way you fire people than we do in the United States. And in the United States, throughout the 50 states, it's different from state to state, and California has some of that as well. So he tried, I think, to be preemptive. I'm offering 2 months severance, 3 months severance, whatever it is. It still has to be done in a with process and procedures. And the unwillingness on my part, maybe I'm giving him more credit. You said he was smart or a genius, or people think he's.
I didn't say he was a genius.
Some people think he's a genius. You said he was. You said he was smart.
He's smart.
Some people think he's a genius. That leads me to think, I don't know, he's not smart or a genius, but I keep wanting to give him the benefit of the doubt that, to the question of whether success means good leader, and you've already answered that saying no, that he's got some method to his madness to get to a place of success. And I think he probably cares not one spit about whether or not he's a good leader. He's the richest man on the planet, or at some point was. I can't even imagine what that does to your ego. What that does to your thinking and decision-making process, right? And so I just keep thinking there has to be something else. And so again, maybe that's just me giving way too much credit. But good leader, no. And I'm just along for the ride to see where all of this lands.
Well, yeah, let's do one thing here. Let's really kind of give a very loose definition of leadership. Leadership is the ability to inspire people, motivate and inspire people, but positively motivate and inspire people, because people can be motivated by negative things. So coercion is not leadership, because if you're coercing, if you're doing things through coercion, people will, in some way, shape, or form, they will, defy you either passively, aggressively, or outwardly. So a lot of people confuse that. They think that coercion is actually good leadership, because people will do what you tell them if you have the position power and you can frighten them into doing it, but it will be short-lived. And if it isn't short-lived, they'll do the bare minimum, or they won't necessarily do a good job because they'll be so worried and frightened. They'll be doing it under duress, and you will not get the best out of them. So that is not, leadership. Motivating and inspire people from the positive standpoint is leadership. So I just want to put that out there. But there are a lot of successful people that think that coercion is good leadership because people will do what you tell them to do. And I think that's the issue. I have these discussions with my friends that are not as informed as we are in terms of leadership, and they think that certain leaders that go and yell and scream at people, they're showing, I'm using the term leaders loosely, are really good leaders, and I know that they're not. And
I'm reading a lot of comments that go along with that mindset, right? That good riddance for all the people that were sent away. They weren't doing any work, which is this other thing, that there's this perception that none of these people were doing any work. And until Elon came along, that now he's gotten down to a core group of engineers and others who are actually going to do work. There's no communications department, as I understand it. I don't know if any of that has changed, but there's no communication department. HR was gutted. What's left in HR? I read something about the legal counsels who have been basically become persona non grata. He's not listening to them. And so, inspiring and motivating, for the most part, he is not, except for maybe a core group of people who, for whatever their motives are, right, want to stay and be a part of it. And it may not have anything to do with Elon directly. It may have to do with, maybe there will be some reward at the end of this, that if he can save this and turn this around, there will be some reward. Here's the really interesting thing. It went from a company that was publicly owned and traded,
You lost that,
right? And employees having a stake in that company. Now he owns it. It's just, and if you get anything out of it, it will be out of his being magnanimous, I guess, because he doesn't have to do anything anymore.
Well, yeah. Well, let's just look at a couple things here. Let's look at the fact that he changed the verification process in Twitter and started complete chaos where people were buying it. He made it a subscription service. People were buying it and pretending and impersonating other businesses and creating,
including him.
Yeah, and creating all kinds of issues, firing people, and then saying, "Oh, I fired you yesterday, but can you come back?" That is not good leadership. I mean, I mean, it's poor decision making. It just, that was ridiculous. And then the other thing that I was going to say is, he told some people to come to work, but then disabled their badges because he was paranoid that they were going to come into the job and sabotage things. So, I mean, those are just three things that, there have been like 5, 6, 7, or 8 things, I think, that he's done in the first month that have just been, if you or I were taking over an organization and doing that, that would be it. We would have to go and move someplace and change our name. But because it's Elon Musk, he can do these things. He's developed enough of a track record that people say, well, let's see what this guy is smart. Let's see what he's going to do. But those are just really awful business decisions.
Right. I think the other part is, going back to the decision-making episodes, is taking input, getting input, feedback, right? And so in addition to the things that you've mentioned, he's gotten rid of those people that are set up in the company, in companies in general, that company in particular, to provide that sort of advice and counsel. So there's, as I understand it, it could be different. Something could have changed, or maybe I misunderstood it. He got rid of the board, right? And so the only counsel, the only counsel he's taking is his own.
Well,
and if you think you're the only one who has all the answers, any answers, let alone all the answers,
there's a problem, right? So no one has all the answers. And there are things that let's just make it really simple. And I know we're not usually, this is more of a discourse. We are both good at certain things, you and I.
Yes.
And think about and this is for anybody out there, think about the thing that you are really good at, that you might even say you're excellent at. And think of something that isn't related to that, and think, could you go run a business in that other thing? You may be a really good baker. You may have, let's just keep it in the same realm. You may be able to make amazing cakes, amazing pies, cupcakes, whatever. That doesn't mean you could run a bakery. And that's in the same realm of what you're doing.
True.
Say you own a bakery and you're really good. You have a chain of bakeries and they're doing pretty well, maybe even the best in the country. That doesn't mean you could go run gyms. Two different things. So, but it's the truth. But what starts to happen when you get that level of success and you have a lot of it, and it is on the appearance systematic, you tend to think you could do nearly anything.
Right. There's a good point you just made, Robert. I don't even know if you made it, but I'm sure you do know because you're a genius. But running a bakery, running a set of franchises of gyms or whatever is not the same thing as leading, right? Because running the business is not about working with, inspiring, motivating, empowering the people. Leadership is about people. Leadership is about the relationship between you and people. It's not just the bottom line of a business. Being a good leader, effective leader overall should help you with the bottom line. But going back to the original question, they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
And so you can effectively run bakeries or gyms or both or neither, right? And be good leaders. And every good leader is not going to be someone who is meant to run a business.
Right. Yeah, it's just true. I mean, and I think that's knowing the ins and out of your business is different than being able to motivate and inspire the people that work for your business. It's really good when you can do both, and some people can, but I don't have I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. What I have seen are successful businesses that run very well because the people know the business.
Yeah.
That's been my experience, my personal experience. I've heard of businesses where the people that run it know the business and are great at leading people. They are out there. But one of the reasons why we have this program, one of the reasons why we talk about what we talk about is because we know that most managers and most leaders, or quote unquote leaders, they're not really leading as effectively as they could. And I think that's the issue. And when you have somebody like Elon Musk come up, who has a name for himself, who has success, it really puts the whole situation under a microscope. You want to see, for me, because I'm a nerd when it comes to this stuff, I want to see how it's all going to turn out. I'm not going to make any predictions. If it were anyone else, I would say they're doomed. Look, there's been a lot of successful people that have taken the helms of other really successful companies and didn't do well. I remember years ago they had the CEO. I think we mentioned this. This was like one of my very first case studies that I did when we were in school. Was the CEO of JCPenney, who came from Gap. And he went over there and he said the first thing that he was going to do was get rid of the coupons. And it's like, and that nearly tanked the entire organization because the people he didn't know, his clientele, they love those coupons. You got to know the people that are using your business and what they find value in. You just can't look at it as an individual and go, well, I think those things are stupid, so therefore I'm going to get rid of them. That is a recipe for disaster. You got to do your research. You got to understand who your customers are, what they find valuable before you go in and say, we're going to get rid of this, we're going to change this and move that. And that's what Elon did. It's surprising because it's a rookie mistake. And I think that's what really caught my attention is like, really, it was like somebody who inherited a company from their dad. Never liked the way dad ran this place. I'm going to go and change. I'm going to change the verification.
I'm going to change everything day one. And the challenging part of this for me as an outsider looking in is that, again, I think he could achieve the end that he wants and simultaneously be a good leader, which leads me to believe that he's not a good leader at Tesla or SpaceX either. He is who he is, right? He is who he is. And the way he goes about things is the way he goes about things. So here's an interesting thing. I did not know. I don't know if I didn't know or just forgot. I'm pretty sure I did not know that he did not found Tesla. He's considered a founder of Tesla, but he did not found. He was not a founder of Tesla. It was founded by two others, and through some machinations, ultimately getting one of them out, he was able to, through some court things, whatever, is now considered a founder of Tesla. Mm-hmm. Although he did not actually do that. He came in and took over and did some things that he's done. So the fact, and I think a similar story, not exactly the same, but something sort of similar in other businesses that he's been a part of, right? He comes from money and he's been able to parlay that, leverage it, do some things that have resulted in him landing where he has with Tesla and others. And so it's notoriously known that he's not a great leader. I don't think he cares about that.
No,
I think he cares about winning, right? And for him, by any means necessary. And so, for you watching and listening, you are not the richest man on the planet. You are not probably running several, multi-billion-dollar companies, valued companies. You are probably the manager, director. You could be CEO of whatever company that you work for. And the question that you have to ask yourself is, do I want to run my company, my business, my department, my unit, whatever it is, with a by any means necessary mindset to get the work done? Or do you want to be someone who leads and inspires people to do what others do by coercion, right? And if you can do it by inspiring and motivating, why would you need to do it by coercion? People who do it by coercion do it that way for, I would say, a couple of reasons. One, maybe they don't know any other way. Two, they don't care. Maybe that's how they were, it happened for them. Or three, they're overcompensating for something, right? And so in my research, in my experiences, and in my observations, those are kind of the way that works out. Why would you choose that over another method that doesn't create chaos and angst, disengagement, and the other things that come along with the coercion method that actually will help improve your bottom line, right? The studies have shown this. Your bottom line is improved when you have employees who are engaged and invested in your company. So that method, coercion, yes, it probably works for some people, or they don't care. They have a skin that it doesn't matter to them. They just want to go get the work done. They can shut out the rest of it, leave at the end of the day and go on about their business. Most people are not like that. All right. Most of us are human. and that's not how we sort of navigate each and every day. So the question isn't whether or not you're going to be successful, right? You can be successful with coercion. The question is, do you want to be successful by coercion, right? Would you like it to happen a different way? And if you can do it a different way, why are you doing it that way? And then being willing to ask the questions and sit with the answers, right? He does not strike me. I could be 100% wrong. I believe 100% that I am absolutely 100% right. He strikes me as a miserable person.
I don't know.
I'm just gonna say it. He strikes me as a miserable person. And everyone that I have observed lead by coercion
have been miserable people.
Have been miserable.
Well, I think that I tend to agree with you for most of that. I've seen some people who lead by coercion because that was the only method they knew. Because that was, you said that, that's how they were, brought up at, in the leadership ranks. I will say this from what I think. It's not my style. What I think why some people do it is because it feels good to their ego, to know that people fear them, to know that they could inspire, people to cringe as they walk by. But
And they're miserable.
Well, yeah. So my thing is this: if your ego needs that kind of stroking, then you don't have a very strong ego.
Bingo.
If you need that,
Yeah.
if that's how you feel empowered,
and you're overcompensating.
You're overcompensating. I mean, you don't need that. But there are some people that actually need that. They're insecure. They need to be, and this is something that I tell a lot of people when they go, well, this person, they seem like they're really stuck on themselves. Like, well, that means they're insecure. Because if they were secure, they wouldn't need to portray that. They wouldn't need to project that.
Yeah.
People that are secure don't need to do that. And look, let's face it, we've all have our, and you may be secure in one thing and insecure in something else. We all have this thing where, I know very few people that are 100% confident in everything.
Right.
But when you're leading in that manner, people watch and they emulate what you do. And I've seen this firsthand in organizations that I worked in. I worked in an organization that was very aggressive and negative. I'll just say that word. I don't like to use that word a lot. Where from the CEO on down, every manager was treating other people like that.
Yeah.
Until they got to me, because I don't tolerate that. And I remember, there were, whatever the behaviors were that the CEO was doing, they were doing too. So it was a situation where if you said hello to the CEO, if they didn't like you, they would just ignore you or walk away from you, or leave you with your hand sticking out like that and not shake it. And I remember I was new to the organization, and this is me just, showing who I am. I got in the elevator with the manager and I said hello to him, and he looked at me and turned away. I got off and I went back on the elevator, and I waited until there was no one else on the elevator. I said, I was talking to you. I was like, and he just, oh yeah, I'm sorry, good morning. I said, okay. I said, we'll try that again tomorrow. And I set it up that way from, I'm not going to tolerate that behavior. And that's just my personality. Now, would I recommend that for everybody? No, I wouldn't. Some people would get along by, tolerating that and fitting into the culture that way and doing that stuff. But that's just not how I was taught to lead, and not taught, I was taught that, if something happens that you don't agree with, address it.
Right.
And I wasn't disrespectful, but I said, excuse me, I was talking to you. And I just put that person, as we used to say, on blast right then and there, because I was like, I'm not gonna start this out. I'm not gonna start out my first, couple of weeks in an organization letting people know that they can treat me that way, because I'm not going to engage folks in that manner. And so, but what I'm saying is that was the behavior that was observed, and that was the behavior that was modeled, and that was the behavior that was copied. They were all following the lead of the CEO. And so there's all kinds of issues there. And here's the other thing. That coercion and that autocratic behavior, that may inspire people. They may think they're inspired.
Oh, they're inspired, all right.
And they may, but some people may stay and say, well, this person has strong leadership.
They could.
It's just bad leadership. It's not.
Oh no, you're absolutely right. They could, and I imagine some of the ones who did would. I saw pictures. I'm going to provide this caveat or this disclaimer. I saw pictures of what purports to be the staff before the firing and the staff after the firing, and some people that were in a picture with Elon. And let's just say that the picture after the firings, very homogeneous.
You don't have to say no more.
And so Again, what is it that you want, right? It goes back to what is it that you want. And yes, being successful is important, but how you go about being successful is just as important. And I will say this, when I'm working with my clients and we're talking about how they're leading, right? It is very much about how they are leading, not just that they are, not just that they have position power, right? But how are you doing that? And is it something that's working for you? The person that you are or the person that you want to be? Do you go home and sleep well at night? Or are you stressing about how people are taking your actions and the way you talk to them and interact with them? Or does any of that matter to you? Because if it does, then how you lead matters.
Yeah. And by the way, I wanted to throw out there, that's called the similar to me bias. When you know I was gonna, sorry.
No, it was very similar to him.
It's the similar to me. Only people that are like me are good at X, Y, and Z, and a lot of people have it. And it's one of the things that I work with clients, like, be mindful of this bias, because it's like all biases, it's a filter, and that filter is, you're not seeing things clearly because that filter is it can be opaque. So you have to be really careful about those biases. So,
and I think I think ultimately that's what he wants. He wants a company filled with people like him.
could be.
And if that's what he wants, that's what he's getting. Because in the end, we all get the company that we want, right? We do what it takes to get what we want. Effective, ineffective, whatever. And leadership notwithstanding. So with that,
yep.
I think we bashed Elon.
Well, I want to be careful. I'm not bashing Elon, because
I know we called it the terror of Elon.
Yeah,
it might be a little bashing it.
Maybe. but I just think it's very interesting that, for me, and you know how I am, I'm always like, let's see what happens. That's how I am. Everything becomes an experiment and in the lab for me when it comes to these things, especially because I have no stake in it. So, like, let's see what happens. So I'm very curious to see where Twitter is going to be a year from now. I don't want to make a prediction, but I have a suspicion it'll still be around. It'll still be doing okay, because things like this, they tend to spiral very slowly. So let's see if it's going to rebound from the negative publicity and all the stuff that's going on right now. I tend to think that it will be okay, but there are changes that are going on in tech in general that this may exacerbate. So let's just see what happens.
No, I agree. I have no prediction. And again, I have no stake. I didn't own any shares before. Obviously, I own none after because I'm not him. So I have no stake in this. I don't know anyone who works for Twitter. Mercifully, those people who no longer work for Twitter, Godspeed to you. You're probably better off, I say. But none of that matters in the end. What we care about is that we can take lessons from what's being modeled for us, right? Absolutely. That we take lessons from what we're seeing. And again, asking the questions. What kind of leader do you want to be? You can be an Elon Musk, and you can have some success maybe in getting things done, but is that truly the way that you want to be and the way that you want to see work done? And the bottom line is you get to decide. And so if you decide you want something different, you want something more effective on the leadership side, right? Reach out to Robert and or I, or both of us, and let's talk about how you can make some changes to be more of the leader, in the vein of the leader you'd like to be. If you want to be like Elon, you could just follow him.
You just do it. Just follow the articles.
Just do what he does. If you want to do it a different way, reach out, let us know. We would be happy to talk with you about how we can help you in that. And so with that, we want to thank you for joining us for this episode of The State of Leadership, Simple and Beyond, the Terror of Elon Musk. I love that title. I love that title. And we are here on Thursdays, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, every week, talking leadership. And so if there's a topic that you'd like for us to cover, or an angle on a topic that we've covered in the past, please let us know. We would love to do that for you. So until next time, take care.